I was hoping he'd catch it. That's all it was. So and then we got the call and everybody was happy. So we ran it off. We ran the clock out and we won the game. So everybody's happy.
A controversial call at the link seals the deal for the Owls.
Oh, how the mighty continue to fall. Inside the Nest is live and it starts right now. Hello and welcome to Inside the Nest. Alongside Brooklyn Vaughn, I'm Dan Wilson.
We have plenty of coverage today. We'll preview Temple's next matchup against the SMU Mustangs and listen into Coach Carey's press conference.
But first, another game that spikes your blood pressure. For the second time this season, the Owls welcomed a nationally ranked team to the link. But this time, it was a conference game with a lot more on the line. And it was homecoming, with about 35,000 on hand. Owls taking on 23rd ranked Memphis on Saturday at the link. First Owls possession. Russo wastes no time airing the football downfield, connects with Brandon Mack for a 38-yard completion to get the offense inside the red zone. 4 plays later, second and goal at the 1. Jagger Gardner punches it in, and the Owls strike first. Memphis fumbles, gives the Owls the ball, and on 4th and 1, instead of keeping the offense on the field, Rod Carey will send out Will Mobley and collect his 3 points. Owls up 10. Second quarter, Owls up 16-0 now. Russo hands to Ray Davis. Wasn't a clean exchange. Ball on the ground and Memphis recovers. Tigers trying to score off the turnover. Brady White finds DeMonte Coxey on the far side of the end zone, and Memphis is on the board. 2.5 minutes left in the half. Russo tosses it to Isaiah Wright on the end around. Technically a 12-yard pass. He finds the pylon, 23-7 Owls. Kenneth Gainwell. You knew he was going to burn the Owls at some point. Waltzes in for the 25-yard score. Memphis cuts the lead to 9, heading into halftime. Third quarter, Memphis giving it to running back Kylan Watkins this time. He runs it in from 23 yards out, and just like that, Memphis is within 2. 23-21 Owls. To the fourth, Russo dropping it in over the shoulder of Brandon Mack. Owls back up 9. Memphis refusing to go away. White rolls out and connects with Trice Daniel in the end zone. Memphis cutting the Owls lead to 2 once again. Tigers with the ball down 2 in Temple territory. Owls looking for a potential game-saving stop. Brady White nearly brought down, gets it away to the tight end Joey Magnifico beyond the sticks. Call on the field as a catch and a first down, but after a lengthy review, it's called incomplete. Memphis turns the ball over on downs, and final play here. Memphis is at their own 34. They need a miracle. 1 lateral, 2 lateral. No, that's 3 laterals brought down by Harrison Hand, and the game is over. Owls take down Memphis 30-28 for their second-ranked win of the season.
We scored touchdowns in the red zone and would have been that close to the end. So, just got to I think we ran the ball great again. I think the offensive line played great. Pass protection, I think, was their best of the season. And then, like always, wide receivers made plays on the outside. So I think it was a great day for us.
Like I said, once we find something that works, we're gonna stick to it. And just so today was ground and pound. And we threw it a little bit too. Russo did a great job throwing the ball. So I feel like we had a very balanced game. Played very well.
That's built into our team and defense in general. That's just Temple tough. Every day we practice and it's either we in pro pads or full pads or just half pack. We hitting, we flying to the ball, we running around, we thudding up. I just love the way everybody's playing. It's more than just going on the field. It's everybody just doing the right thing on and off the field. Just being at meetings on time, being at class on time, taking care of your work so none of the past is causing us to have conflicts in the future.
Still hungry. We want to be everybody who we have lined up on the schedule. We want to be everybody. So we're going to work for it, and then hopefully we get everybody over here happy.
A big win for the Owls on homecoming. For the Tigers, Brady White was 28 of 43 for 363 yards with 2 touchdowns. Turnovers plagued Memphis on Saturday. The Tigers had 4 turnovers, and White had 3 of them himself. 2 fumbles and an interception. Kenneth Gainwell, of course, delivered as expected. He had 19 carries and racked up 106 yards with a touchdown, along with 8 receptions and 98 yards. DeMonte Coxey wasn't far behind with 8 receptions for 92 yards and a touchdown. This was Coxey's 3rd straight game with a touchdown for the Tigers. And as for the Owls, Anthony Russo was 20 of 33 for 224 yards and 2 touchdowns. Temple's dual-threat rushing attack gave Memphis trouble. Jagger Gardner led the Owls' ground with 77 yards and a touchdown, but it was freshman Ray Davis who led the team in carries with 23, and he wasn't that far behind Gardner in yards, finishing with 72. Brandon Mack had himself a day with 125 receiving yards and a touchdown, while senior Isaiah Wright also found the end zone and his way up on Temple's all-time receptions list. His 6 catches propelled him up 3 spots on the Owls leaderboard, and Wright is now 6th all-time with 124 career receptions.
The Owls' win over Memphis has them getting recognition in the polls. While the Owls are ranked 28th in the official AP poll, just 3 spots shy of an official ranking, they are ranked 25th in the USA Today coaches poll. Temple has taken down number 21 Maryland and number 23 Memphis so far this season, marking the first time in program history the Owls have 2 wins over ranked opponents in the same year. Of course, they'll have a chance to extend this record on Saturday, as SMU is ranked 19th in the AP poll. And some news on the future of the American Athletic Conference from Mark Narducci of the Philadelphia Inquirer. AAC Commissioner Mike Oresco has announced that the conference has applied for a 2-year waiver from the NCAA to continue playing a conference championship game at the end of the 2020 and 2021 seasons, despite the fact that, as of now, the conference will only have 11 teams starting next year. UConn has announced that it will be leaving the AAC at the conclusion of the 2019-2020 school year, leaving the American 1 school below the NCAA's minimum threshold to host a conference title game. Even if approved, the AAC will more than likely have to find a 12th school to fill UConn's spot at some point in the near future.
And we are now joined by our Inside the Nest beat reporter, Ray Dunn, who breaks down just how crucial the defense was in Saturday's win over Memphis.
Hey, Ray.
Thanks, guys. Memphis came in averaging nearly 40 points a game, unbeaten and seeking bowl eligibility. And while the Tigers put up the most yards and points of any team against the Owls at the Link this season, Temple's big play defense stood tall once again when the game was in doubt.
It was deja vu all over again at the Link on Saturday, and that's just fine with the Owls. Facing another ranked team with a hot offense at home, the Owls defense answered the call once again. 3 fumble recoveries, 3 stops on 4th down, and an interception on the afternoon. And the Owls defense made it known once again that it sits among the premier units in the conference.
We read our keys, we get our feet in the ground, and we communicate, and we get off on the snap count. We certainly practice situational football, but it's not like we continually practice 4th downs.
It's a coach's. The play calling is perfect. Linebackers give us the play calls that puts the D tackles in the positions that we need to be in. And when that happens, we can make the plays, and it's just poetry.
Just as they did against Maryland, Temple's defense was tasked with 2 4th downs in the final 2 minutes. It did also take a little help from replay review, which showed Memphis's Joey Magnifico dropping the ball on the first 4th quarter 4th down stop. Either way, the Owls were able to stand tall in the game's biggest moments.
I just felt like that's built into our team and defense in general. That's just Temple tough. We hitting, we flying to the ball, we running around, we thudding up. It's just in our lifestyle.
The clutch defensive effort has now propelled the Owls to consecutive wins over ranked teams in a season for the first time in program history.
One defensive player who had a huge hand in the win bears that name. Junior cornerback Harrison Hand had an interception, forced fumble, and the game-ending tackle for loss. His performance is a big reason why he was named the weekly All-Conference Honor Roll and why the Owls sit at 5-1, their best start since 2015.
Thank you, Ray. That was a lot to break down from this one that warrants a closer look.
It's time to go ahead and dive in deeper in the good and the bad from Saturday's game, starting with the turnaround performance from Temple's special teams. If you can remember back to the early weeks of the season, it was painfully obvious how poorly the special teams unit was playing. But it looks like they kind of figured it out. In their matchup against Memphis, they were able to win the field possession battle. Senior Jacob Lafree stepped in for the first 3 punts, and Adam Barry came on for the last punt of the game. Both of them down to punt inside the Memphis 20, not to mention Will Mobley went 3 for 3 on field goals. The Owls special team unit is now ranked 127th in the country. That's up from 130th, and that's what I like to call progress.
For Anthony Russo, the turnover issues have been temporarily put on hold. He got away with a near interception in the red zone on Saturday, but he managed to finish the game turnover-free for the first time in 2019. He played well enough for the Owls to win on Saturday, completing 61% of his passes for 223 yards. But he did have 2 touchdowns, and he played a clean game against a ranked opponent. It's what you like to see.
Well, Russo couldn't have done it without this guy. Junior wideout Brandon Mack. He reeled in the 12-yard pass from Russo to extend the Owls' lead to 9 early in the fourth quarter. He had the longest reception of the game, a 38-yarder on Temple's first drive of the game. This was Mack's 3rd game, believe it or not, with 9 receptions and over 100 yards, the other 2 being Bucknell and ECU. Now, those 3 games have accounted for 77% of Mack's receptions and 79% of his receiving yards on the season.
A win against a ranked team is never something to complain about. However, there's plenty of reasons to be surprised this game even went down to the wire. The Tigers outscored Temple 28-14 after going down 16-0 to start the game. Additionally, the Owls forced 3 consecutive turnovers, and yet the Tigers still remained within 2 possessions. The Owls can't afford to play just one half well moving forward, especially against a ranked team like SMU on the road. And we have to take a quick timeout, but when we come back, we go live to Rod Carey's weekly press conference.
Don't go anywhere. Inside the Nest will be back after the break. Welcome back to Inside the Nest. Rod Carey is already at the podium at Ed Bergolson Hall, so we're going to go ahead and send it right over as he addresses the media in his weekly press conference.
Obviously, as a quarterback who's playing lights out, has a lot of skill around him, an offensive line that's working well together, defense that is running around, pursuing the ball, challenging you on the outside, certainly trying to make you earn every inch of the field, and then special teams. They're challenging that way. They got a guy back there punting who's also an athlete, so you got to keep an eye on that. And then with kickoffs, they're kicking it all over the field. So certainly a challenge and has our full attention. And we're 2 practices into it now, and certainly not where we need to be in the week for prep, but on our way. So with that, we can open it up for questions. Sorry, guys, I got a little cold too, so.
I guess going back to Memphis, Anthony mentioned that the red zone struggles were just kind of like little things that, kind of threw everything off. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, yeah, I mean, you got to, trying to run the same play twice and you bust it once and fumble on another, and then you got to fumble, on a throwback from B-Mac to Toddy, and you got a missed wide open guy. So it's execution is what it is, I'm sure he was referring to, and that's what we got to strive to get better at in practice here.
Rod, you kind of had a depleted safety squad
the
other day. Is the news any better on that?
Well, Brute was out there practicing today, so I'm very hopeful that he's going to be able to play on Saturday. He'll get out there tomorrow too, so I didn't hear any setbacks today. Certainly Amir will be in there. I'm not real hopeful for Benny this week, but the type of injury he has is an upper body injury that it's really a pain tolerance injury. So if he can deal with the pain, he can go. But right now, I'm not too hopeful on that. And sorry, guys.
Speaking of injuries, where are you guys at with Randall Jones? Is a redshirt still an option for him?
Well, it is, and I think that, like I said before, we got to get him healthy before we can answer that question. There's still a lot of football left in this season. So trying to get him healthy, but we've certainly had those discussions. And we'll see after we can get him going, then we can make that decision.
You faced a pretty explosive offense last week. Does that help you at all going into this week when you're facing another?
Well, they do it so different. I think the fact that they're explosive gets your attention when you watch the film and you see them, run the ball, throw the ball, execute at a high level. But both teams do it so different. They're really the carryover. There's not a ton there on that.
What did Tulsa do so well to get up 30-9 after 3 quarters?
Well, he got some turnovers early. He had some fluky plays too, like the one kickoff that wasn't fielded, and then they recovered it for a touchdown. But they did that, and then I thought they ran the ball well and, really controlled the game for, 2.5 quarters, and still had an opportunity there at the end. So that's kind of was the opening recipe for them.
Ron, do you notice, it seemed last week, and maybe I'm wrong, obviously you studied the film, that the teams are kind of like staying away from Harrison, like throwing from him?
Well, he had a pick, so they threw at least one to him, right? I don't know that to be the case yet. It could turn into that. Obviously, he played at a high level last week. And certainly, there could be some, formations that they're doing to try to get a matchup that they want. And I feel like all of our corners are playing at a high level right now. But certainly, he's playing at a really high level.
A much above average tackler for a corner especially.
Yeah, well, he's a big physical put together guy that's not afraid of contact. So he's not your typical corner that way, and none of our corners are afraid of contact. Harrison happens to be a little bigger than probably the rest of them, but certainly he's not afraid of contact, which is good.
This game's kind of similar to you guys coming off a nationally ranked win and then going on the road. How do you kind of avoid that letdown like you had at Buffalo? I know Anthony said that you guys have been kind of reminding them about it.
Well, yeah, we talked about it. How do you handle success, right? And I think that that's a big thing for us this week. And the only way I know how to handle success or failure is get back to work. And so I don't think we had our best day today. We certainly had a good day yesterday. We need to amp it up tomorrow and have a good day and get to work. But we're in the middle of this grind right now, and there are a lot of bumps and bruises and things like that. But it's still, that's where our focus has to be on the day-to-day, not the result.
Mobley, he's always been consistent. Range has always been a question, which he kind of admitted, but you sent him out there to hit from 44, which he did. So you're feeling a little better extending him at this point?
Yeah, we've really felt like, 40 to 45, we feel pretty comfortable with him. And probably, I don't know, since maybe after the bye week when we stretched him out a little bit in practice and have been consistently doing that, that was probably his range. So I had good confidence in him right there going out, and he delivered.
Coach, Zach Mesday reported a sack against Memphis. So what have you seen out of him this season?
Well, the same I see from Zach every day in practice, just consistent effort and a motor that just doesn't stop, and really a smart football player too, and that usually results in good things, and it certainly did in that case for him.
You've got the 2 ranked wins, and after both of them, you've kind of come out and said, there's a lot to clean up, and it wasn't up to your standards. Is that encouraging in some ways? You've been able to beat those teams even not your best?
Sure, I get. Yeah, when you probably look at it that way, there's probably some encouragement that way. Absolutely. But I coaches, we just keep looking at the negative, right? I mean, we want to play our best, so it's hard to find the silver lining in there. So we were kind of back at work right away, trying to get that stuff corrected.
What about St. Louis quarterback Michelle A, Texas transfer, and what have you seen from him, specifically that makes him such a threat?
Well, there isn't a throw he can't make. That's first, and then he's a better runner than you think. At first kind of view, you'd go, well, he's not a runner. Well, and then you dig into it, and the runs he's had have been good, physical, fast, and he's faster than you think too. So he's a really good quarterback.
Looking long for Prochet. He breaks it in.
Playing pretty loud. How loud do you expect this environment to be?
Well, I don't know. I guess from what I've heard is that it's going to be a good crowd. And certainly from on film, you can see they've had good crowds already. So I would expect the same. And so we're preparing for that that way. But I've never been there, so I couldn't tell you how loud to compare it to something else.
Any thoughts? There was a story out, I guess you guys were close to being the ESPN game day game this week. I guess they went with Penn State, but any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Where are they?
They're going to Michigan, Penn State.
Oh, well, that's not a bad choice, right? I mean, it is what it is.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. I guess your UCF game is going to be at 7 next week, so you'll run the gamut of noon games, mid-afternoon, weekend nights, weekday nights. Does that, I guess it doesn't change your preparation at all. As a coach, do you have a preference?
Oh, yeah. I mean, let's play at 9 a.m. in the morning. I'm all for that. Let's do that. And then we got the rest of the day, right? Pac-12's trying to do that, right? So, yeah, I like to get up on game day, and I know our guys do too. Get up, wake up, go play. I don't know coaching a player that doesn't like that, but I know nighttime atmospheres can be special too, and we've been in a few of them. So there's give and take, but yeah, if I had it, it would be earlier in the day. But you can't control any of that stuff. What our kickoff, I think I saw, is what, 3:30, 2:30? 3:30 Eastern. Yeah, so yeah, we have schedules for everything.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys.
There you have it. Rod Carey speaking to reporters at Ed Burke Olson Hall. We welcome you back in studio here. Dan Wilson, Brooklyn Vaughn, and of course we now welcome our Inside the Nest reporters, Dom Gillespie, and we welcome back Ray Dunn. How you doing, guys?
Good. Happy to be here, guys.
Fantastic.
So
Glad to be here.
I'll lead it off. First question for you guys. He mentioned there was a question about Harrison Hand, and he's going to have to play phenomenally this week, in my opinion. SMU has the most passing yards in the AAC, and they also allow the least sacks in the AAC. Is Harrison Hand, do we have a no-fly zone on our hands, and how well is he going to have to play this weekend?
Hand's going to have to play extremely well. SMU quarterback, as you said, Shane Buechele, one of the best quarterbacks in the AAC, if not the best. Hand's going to have to play extremely well. I'm not necessarily sure we have the outside of no-fly zone there yet. He did have a few targets on Saturday with that interception, but after that interception, you could see them kind of straying away from throwing towards him. So he will have to play out of his mind if Buechele comes to play as well.
And I think on top of that, without Benny Wallace, you heard Kerry in the presser there make mention of the fact that his non-contact injury sustained last Thursday, which they said on Saturday was going to be, he'll be all right. The fact that he might not play on Saturday is huge for the Owls. If he's not playing, that changes the entire dynamic for that secondary. It makes life a lot harder for Harrison Hand. He had a great game on Saturday, but you got to remember how many passing yards they allowed compared to their normal on Saturday against Memphis.
Now, something else that's on the table here is the Owls are heading back on the road, which historically hasn't played out as easily as they thought it would this season so far. So coming off of yet another ranked win, huge energy behind this one. How do they handle this success, and how are they going to take that and channel that going back on the road?
I think it's something that Carey said in his press conference. It's always looking at the negatives, which you should definitely give the team credit when they pull off really good wins against ranked teams. But staying with those negatives and cleaning up the game, like Memphis was a far from perfect game. The fact that they were even in that game towards the end is not where you want to be with this Temple football team. So I think it's just cleaning everything up and looking at the negatives instead of the positives and making sure you go down to Texas and play an almost perfect game against SMU.
Right.
Yeah, it's really the sloppiness on the road that I would say has been the problem. You look at the game against Buffalo, and after they got out of their scripted offense, that first drive, really, they struggled. It was tough to watch for most of that game in terms of the way they were executing. Then when they went down to ECU, the beginning of the game, penalty after penalty after penalty, offsides, false starts. Like, these are things you can control. So going on the road, they just have to be able to deal with the atmosphere of not being where they're used to. You know, the entire schedule, they mentioned before ECU, they switched up the schedule of going on the road. They didn't make any mention of that today. Rod Carey didn't make any mention of that today in the presser. So I'm curious to see what they'll do differently this time around, because both times it's just been ridden with mistakes, ridden with sloppiness. Even though they got the win against ECU on the road, it was still a very sloppy game.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about you guys, and I'm actually surprised he wasn't asked about this, but the play calling, they had 3 turnovers and still leaving Memphis in the game. It was only 16-0, only getting 3 field goals, had 2 4th and shorts. Can that continue going forward? Because personally, I think that kind of passive play calling will not fly against SMU and down the gauntlet of the season.
Especially when you're taking on ranked teams, you kind of have to hammer down and keep the foot on the gas. And that might open the door for a few mistakes, but you have to put your confidence in your offense. And yeah, you might be able to run the ball a little bit more, but that's all like a different dynamic that you have to show. And you got to put the ball in Russo's hand and let him make play and be able to put games away early so they're not fighting to get back or fighting to win the game in the fourth quarter when they should have already put it away.
Let me do a little math for you here.
Sure.
All right. So they get those 2 4th and shorts. They kick the field goal on both of those, right? You end up with 6 points there. Let's say they go for it on both of those. They only get one of them. They end up scoring a touchdown that drive. You end up with 7 points. Now, my math, if it holds correct, 7 more than 6. Those types of possessions where you're down there, especially when you start a possession on the 12-yard line, you got to be able to score that. You got to be able to get that in for a touchdown. Kicking field goals early on, field goals don't win football games. Touchdowns win football games. The fact that they had 3 turnovers early on and were only up 2 possessions, 16-0 early on, that's inexcusable. They have to get the execution in the red zone, and especially on those 4th and shorts, you got to go for one of those. You got to trust your offense. Those are the guys they've said time and time again. This offense executes the way we want them to. They're executing the way you want to. On 4th and 1, you better believe in the red zone. You're going towards the end zone. You're trying to push that for that 1-yard gain and get closer to that goal line.
More than putting confidence in your offense, you got to put that confidence in your defense too. Owls have a great defense.
And good news, Ray, we're going to address the whole decision-making in No Huddle later. But guys, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have both of our beat reporters on desk with us today. It sounds like Ray Carey is ready to take on the Mustangs, and so is the team.
We caught up with the Owls players after Tuesday morning's practice to hear how they're getting ready for this Saturday's game against SMU.
Worried about our game plan, going out, executing our game plan. And I think last week we showed again, if we do that, if we execute our game plan and minimize the penalties, minimize the tackles for loss, the negative plays, then we can go up and down the field on anybody. So, we know that they're going to put up some points, but we got all the confidence that our defense is going to shut them down.
We're going to give them the utmost respect. They're a great team. They come in every week prepared, great offense, very explosive. So we definitely have to go out there and just do our job. We're going through the game plan right now, and it's looking like we have a pretty good game plan set up for them. We got to go out there and execute and handle our business. But, it's a great team, so we just got to go out there and really execute, or bad things can happen.
Defensively, their defensive backs are real good in the pass game, aggressive, very good when the ball's up in the air. But, I think that we can take advantage of them in the run game. And then, as good as their D-backs are, I have all the confidence in our receivers. I think that they've showed week in and week out going up against some of the best D-backs that we've played that they can go up and get the ball. And then with Coach Ramovich, and the whole offensive staff, their scheme week in and week out, I think that they're going to have a great game plan for us. And like I said, it all just comes down to us. All comes down to us going out there, executing, minimizing mental errors, minimizing, stuff that hurts us like the tackles for loss and the penalties. And, if we go out there and play our game like we can, like we should, and I have no doubt that we'll come back with a W.
They have a really good passing game. They got two really good receivers that can really air it out, really spread the field for us, and then that would allow their run game to get going because they have two good running backs that also they're seniors, so they have experience in the league. So they're going to be able to go out there and produce at any time. So we just got to make sure, as far as the passing game, we our safeties and DBs, have good eyes and things like that. We always have good communication because they can definitely shred us through the passing game if we're not with good eyes and things like that.
To be the best, you got to beat the best, and whether that's the best in our conference, the best in the country, or both with a team like SMU, one of the best in the country, I'm one of the best in the conference. To be the best, you got to beat the best, and we want to be the best. So, whoever's in our way, we just see it as another opponent that we have to get through.
And you heard him say it himself, Anthony Russo, to be the best, you have to beat the best. Let's go ahead and revisit our games on tap and take a look at the Owls' schedule and moving forward.
Yeah, so, of course, step 1, they passed the test. They beat Memphis, a ranked Memphis team, 30-28 at home. And this is a difficult 3-game stretch. They got game 1 out of the way, but perhaps the most difficult game of this 3-game stretch, perhaps the most difficult game of the entire season. They're going down to SMU this weekend on Saturday. It's maybe going to really be a test game, as you mentioned, Anthony Russo. If you want to be the best, you have to beat the best. This is among the top teams in the AAC. They're ranked number 19. It's going to be a huge, huge game in the Owls season.
Yeah, well, another huge game. The Owls taking on the UCF Knights at home on October 26th. And Dan, that's a primetime game, 7 p.m. on ESPN2. In my opinion, that sounds like a perfect scenario for a little college game day action. But we'll have to wait and see what happens.
We have to go to break, but when we come back, we're breaking down SMU.
Don't go anywhere. Inside the Nest will be back in a minute 30.
Off week came at a good time for us. Had a chance to heal up a little bit. Had some really good practices. Gave our guys a little bit of time off to try to get away and spend some time on academics and get rested up. We kind of started on Temple yesterday and had a good practice. So looking forward to getting back out there and competing against a really good football team.
Welcome back to Inside the Nest. A quick history lesson. SMU football is historically known for the death penalty imposed on them in the 1980s for excessive violations of NCAA rules. For those who may be unaware, the NCAA banned SMU for an entire season in 1987 and banned them from home games again in the following year, a ripple effect that resulted in the school being unable to field a competitive team for many years. The punishment is considered among the harshest in the history of collegiate athletics. SMU didn't make a postseason bowl game again until 2009. Temple has taken on SMU 5 times in program history, 3 times since both programs joined the AAC. The Owls are on a 2-game win streak since then, leading the series 2-1. The previous 2 matchups came in 1942 and 1946, when the teams tied twice, 6-6 and 7-7 respectively. Expect a little bit more offense this time around, as 2 of the last 3 meetings between these 2 teams have had 100 total points or more, and all 3 have had at least 65. Another fun nugget for you, SMU is coached by Sonny Dykes, who you just heard from right there. He's in his 3rd year. Dykes is a former college athlete himself, but not for football. Instead is a baseball player at Texas Tech.
Pretty interesting stuff. Well, the Mustangs, they're off to a great start to their 2019 campaign. It's in the numbers. Their 6-0 record is the best start they've had since 1982. Their marquee wins so far, TCU, who was ranked 25 at the time, and Tulsa. It took the Mustangs 3 overtimes to decide that one in a dramatic family weekend matchup. On the offensive side, they ranked 2nd in points per game, 2nd in pass yards per game, and 5th in rushing yards per game, compared to the rest of the AAC. Their weaknesses lie within the defense, though. They rank 8th in the conference for points allowed per game, 11th in pass yards allowed per game, and 3rd in rush yards allowed per game.
Now that you have an overview of SMU as a program, here's some players to keep an eye on this Saturday.
Yeah, our players to watch, and I'll start on the offensive side of the ball. Xavier Jones, keep an eye out for him. He's a senior running back with an impressive resume through the start of the season. He leads his team with 646 rushing yards. He's averaging almost 6 yards per carry. That's the 2nd best rusher in the conference right now. He's only behind Memphis back Kenneth Gainwell, who the Owls were able to control last weekend. Jones is the top scorer in the entire AAC with 12 rushing touchdowns and a receiving touchdown. That's 13 touchdowns through only 6 games. If the Owls want to win this one, they need to keep Xavier Jones under control.
I'm going to go to defense. My player to watch on Saturday, it's senior safety Patrick Nelson. He leads the Mustangs in tackles with 38 and in solo tackles with 26. He creates havoc in the secondary, including an interception and fumble recovery this year. However, he loves to blitz out of the secondary as well. He's got 5.5 sacks on the season, taking down opposing teams' QBs for an average loss of more than 8 yards.
At 1, Taylor to the outside.
And now that you know some of the Mustangs' important personnel, we've got the stops for more success.
Yeah, if the Owls want to win this one, again, they're going to have to make sure that they do a few things. Let's go ahead and take a look. Our first key to the game, they need to stop the Mustangs' run game. Guys like Xavier Jones are going to be hard to stop, but hey, it's not impossible. You know, remember back, SMU only averaged 1.6 yards per carry throughout the first 3 quarters of play against Tulsa within this past week. So it's not impossible, again.
We alluded to it a little bit earlier. The secondary has to play one of their best games of the season. Buscelli has the most passing yards in the AAC, and second best in sacks allowed, behind Navy, who runs a triple option, and they've only passed the ball 30 times this season.
Yeah, Dan, and our third stop to success, the Owls, they cannot hit the brakes. And what I mean by that, they need to put their pedal to the metal. No matter how comfortable of a lead they may or may not have going into the second half of play, they just can't let up. In SMU's dramatic battle against Tulsa, remember, they were able to rally 21 points just in the 4th quarter alone to stay in that game.
And you can't go back to the special teams performances of the past. That's my 4th stop for success. It's been a weakness this year. Can't have blunders on Saturday. Will Mobley, he was 3 of 3 on field goals. The punting game, it was strong. It averaged right around that 40-yard mark this past Saturday against Memphis. They're going to have to continue strong special teams play against SMU and for the remainder of the season. But there's more. No, he's not a rookie, but today he's playing one on TV, or a bookie, I should say. Let's bring in Inside the Nest reporter Dom Gillespie. He's got a few betting tips for Temple. Hey, Dom.
Thanks, guys. At the end of the day, the only two things these teams are going to be caring about is adding a number to their win total. But I got curious, with things getting a little more complicated when Vegas gets involved. The Owls come into this game 4-2 against the spread, with those 2 losses coming on the road. On the flip side, the Mustangs are 5-1 against the spread and 2-1 against the spread at home. The line as of Tuesday morning on FanDuel is Temple plus 7.5. And that is my pick for this one. I'm going with the Owls to cover the 7.5 points on the road on Saturday. If the front seven can contain SMU running back Xavier Jones and the Owls control the clock with their balanced offense, this one can certainly stay within a touchdown and come down to the wire. The same cannot be said for the money line, however. While I think it will be a close game, I would stay away from Temple plus 235. The Owls' struggles on the road make it hard to put some faith in them taking on a top 25 team that is also coming off a bye week. I got the Mustangs winning a close one on Saturday, and I'm taking the SMU money line at minus 300. The over-under is set at 59 right now. That is a little high, even for a college game. The over in SMU games is 5-0-1 and 2-0-1 in SMU home games. However, the over is 3-3 in Temple's games this season and 0-2 when the Owls have traveled on the road. Both teams have good defenses, and SMU has the pregame edge on the offensive side of the ball. Look at last week's final score of 30-28. Rather high-scoring game, but that's only 58 points. So that over-under at 59 is a tad high for me. I'm going with the under. All these lines, as mentioned, are as of Tuesday morning and have the potential to vary. I expect the spread to go down a little bit due to people overbetting Temple early this week. For sure, some cash to be made this weekend. But always remember, this is an important disclaimer. Like most other things in life, past performances do not predict future returns. Reporting from the newsroom, I'm Dom Gillespie. Guys, back to you.
Yeah, well, if Dom comes back to next week's show in a nicer suit, we know how things went. I'm just kidding. Thank you, Dom. It's time to take another timeout.
When we come back, we'll be debating Temple special teams, Rod Carey's play calling, and give you our predictions for Saturday's matchup in Dallas. Everybody's favorite segment, it's coming up, No Huddle. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Inside the Nest, and welcome back to No Huddle.
6 minutes, 6 topics. Here we go. Brooklyn, first question's for you. Did Saturday's performance on special teams give you confidence in them going forward?
Honestly, Dan, I'm going to say yes, but only in the slightest. Again, if you can remember from earlier in the show, they're moving up in the rankings. They were 130th within the first 2 weeks, but now they're ranked 127th performing in the entire FBS. Not too shabby. Again, they had Jacob Lafree in for the first 3 punts of the game. Adam Barry comes back in. Could it be the Adam Barry revenge tour? I don't know. He wasn't looking too shabby. Both of them downing punts inside the Memphis 20. I mean, I think moving forward, again, they definitely won the field possession battle this week, but I think it's only going to get better from here.
Yeah, the progress definitely gradual. You got to start somewhere. They were in the basement. Now they're climbing their way back up. As I mentioned earlier in the show, averaging the punts right around 40 yards. Will Mobley was 3 for 3 on field goals. It's just, you're not going to have the same special teams intensity or strengths that you had with Ed Foley. At least it appears that way. But you need to at least be competent in the special teams game going forward. It seems to be peaking at the right time anyway. I think it's definitely encouraging. I'm not fully confident, I'm not quite there yet, but I think it's definitely an encouraging sign and gives you a reason to believe that they can go down to SMU and not have any mistakes or they shoot themselves in the foot.
Right, and you know, Rod Carey, just before I move on, Rod Carey did address this in the press conference. Even though they had Lafree in there for the first 3 punts, he's adamant that Adam Barry is their guy. So like I said, keep an eye out. Adam Barry Revenge Tour, it's starting right now.
Could be a little punter by committee.
The next question, do you agree with Rod Carey and that decision to kick 2 field goals on 4th and short deep in Memphis territory? We know how Ray feels, but Dan, how do you feel?
I feel like Ray, you got to come away with touchdowns in those scenarios, especially on the 4th and 1. I thought that was the worst one. Keep your offense on the field. Show some confidence in Russo and the offense. Go for it on 4th down. Put Memphis out of the way and don't let them come back. That was a huge, huge reason why Memphis even had a chance to win this game. Imagine if Magnifico catches that ball at the end of the game. Memphis could have come back, won this game in a game where they turned the ball over 4 times. You have to go for it, at least in some of those scenarios.
I'm with you, and I'm with Ray here.
Yeah.
Again, Rod Carey didn't address this today in his media conference, but he did after the game. There were a couple questions raised about his decision making. Again, I think his motive, he stated, was that he just wanted to ensure that 2-possession game. So I can see where he's coming from, but I really wouldn't support it, especially on the 4th and 1. Just go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a number of surprises in college football this season. Here's 2 in the AAC. SMU being undefeated and Houston being a total disappointment. Which is a bigger surprise?
I mean, good question, because again, a lot of Houston drama unfolding, crazy situation over there. But I'm going to say SMU being undefeated right now is a pretty impressive feat. Okay, you're coming in this season. Obviously, we're all expecting a very crowded AAC, both the West and the East divisions. It's a tight race week in and week out. And SMU, they really just continue, even pulling back in that the Tulsa game. They somehow are staying undefeated. I'm pretty impressed by what they're doing, and I think that they're going to be definitely a really tough test for the Owls this week.
For me, it's Houston, and it's just to the level at which this is unraveled out of control. D'Eriq King is not even playing for the remainder of this season. Reports out of Houston this week are that they're essentially tanking the season. They have completely lost that team. This was a quarterback in D'Eriq King who was talking about potentially being a Heisman candidate out of the AAC. This was a team that was poised for success this season. They put up a lot of points last year, and they're just totally in the basement of the conference. I did not see this coming at all.
Yeah, Dan, moving on to our 4th question. We touched on this a little bit earlier in the show. The AAC, the situation right now with replacing that 12th team, which independent school should the AAC try and get into the conference?
Personally, I'd go after Army. It makes geographical sense. You already have Navy, so you know that those military schools are willing to join the conference, especially for football purposes. It would be a plus for the other teams in the AAC, especially because you already see that triple option that Navy runs. You could add Army to the mix as well. I think it makes sense. You're in a situation where you're trying to get a school who is not currently affiliated with another conference to the AAC. Get that 12th school in. It seems like Army would just be a pretty good fit.
They would make a great fit, but I also think UMass, University of Massachusetts, is a great option to fill this void here. You have to think it's more of a question beyond the realm of football. 2, this would help out their basketball program. It would definitely be a jump up introducing them into this conference. And like you said, it makes sense geographically, location-wise, market size. It's just a smart move, in my opinion, for the American to go ahead and introduce UMass to the conference.
Now, Temple has a lot of still difficult games remaining on the season. They have SMU this Saturday. They also have to play Cincinnati later in the season, among others. Brooklyn, who is the most difficult game that the Temple Owls will have to play for the remaining of this season?
Yeah, and you know what, Dan, this was a tough question for me because they really do. We've talked about the 3-game stretch ahead of them, all difficult opponents, but I'm going to say that their toughest test lies within this weekend as they take it on the SMU Mustangs. Again, there's a lot that the defense is going to have to keep under control. The offense is going to have to outperform, and special teams, again, they need to pick up their slack. So with that being said, I really do see SMU coming in, of course, number 19, and of course you have to factor in that they're on the road. That's huge. That's proven to be a huge determining factor in their performance. So again, I'm going to say SMU is probably their toughest test left.
It's not a bad pick, but I'm going to go perhaps their biggest and toughest game of the season. It's going to come into the second last week of the regular season. They're traveling at Cincinnati. They're ranked 21 at the moment. They're also in the AACs. That's going to be a difficult test, and one that, if the Owl season continues in the way that it's going, could be for the right to go to that AAC championship game. Cincinnati has been a team that has played very well this season. It, like I said, going to be on the road. You'd imagine there would be an electric crowd on hand for that one. That's shaping up to be a really, really good game and a really difficult test for the Owls, where maybe we'll see what they're really made of.
Right. And of course, our last topic of discussion for the day, our predictions. I want to let it be known that my record is better than yours, but that's okay.
That's correct.
The people still want to know, what are we thinking? Who is going to come out on top this week?
I think Temple, I'm going to go with Temple. They made me, eat my words last week. I picked Memphis in a nail-biter. Temple ended up winning that nail-biter. I think Temple's going to go to SMU and upset, the odds makers and really upset the SMU Mustangs this week. And I think all things are playing well. Russo has shown that he's not turning the ball over like he was earlier in the season. The special teams are starting to connect. I think we're in for a really good game, and I think the Owls can actually pull this one out.
I think, no pun intended, if anyone's going to knock the Mustangs off their high horse, it's going to be the Owls, right? You have your dual threat quarterback situation, your dual threat run game. Everything really is clicking on offense for them, and the defense as well, continuing to outperform week in and week out. Special teams looking better. So I really do think that even though it's on the road, even though it's going to be a tough environment for them, I think the Owls are more than capable of pulling out a win this weekend.
Well, regardless of the outcome, I guess I won't be making up any ground on you this week, but let's see if we can both get this pick right. It's time for us to calm down, but don't touch that remote.
When we come back, we're going to take a look around the rest of the AAC. Don't go anywhere. Inside the Nest, we'll be right back.
We're always up for the challenge, every time, an explosive offense, comes ahead of us, we just want to hone in and really take the time to really come out and, shut the offense down. That's always what a defense wants to do, shut the opposing offense down. And if they can score that many points, we want to see if they can score that many points on us, We're not really too worried about what they did to everybody else and how they played against everybody else, because we just want to know if they can do that against us. So we're just going to go out there and play our game.
And it will continue to be a big emphasis this week is, touchdowns in the red zone. We know that, SMU is going to put up some points, and, we got lucky last week with a team like Memphis, kicking that many field goals in the red zone. That's the reason why we're so close towards the end. If we would have scored some touchdowns in the red zone instead of field goals, I don't think it would have been so close. But, it's an emphasis all week. We got to score touchdowns because you kick a field goal, 3 points is great, but you're leaving 4 points on the board with not getting a touchdown. So, yeah, it's a big emphasis for us this week.
We just really focusing on us and just worry about what we really got to handle. Making sure that, the days like this, they really matter, and just the little things, and from how you start to how you finish, whether how you step here and how you step there. So I think everything matters all throughout the week and in your preparation. So I just feel like before you even go on the road, the game starts here. You play the game through your head a couple times throughout the week from watching film and preparing. So I feel like if everybody just instills in film and being real serious on this field when it's time to lock in, then I think we'll be fine.
I think that's something that not a lot of people have realized is that, we haven't played a complete game yet, offensively and defensively. I think games our defense has played great. The offense wasn't 100%. I think games the offense has played great, the defense wasn't 100%. But I think that, this is a great opportunity for us to get the whole complete team going at the same time, all playing 100%, minimizing, mental errors. I think the defense is going to get us some turnovers. Offense, we're not going to turn it over, and we're going to put up some points. So, I think this is a great opportunity against a great opponent to, have one of those complete games, because I don't think we've had one yet, and I think we're super dangerous when we can have a complete game, all around team win, team game.
A complete team win is exactly what the Owls are going to need to take down the Mustangs this week. Welcome back to Inside the Nest. We're going to take a look around the AAC now. Out in the West, the number 19 Mustangs, they're on top, but just behind them is the Tulane Green Wave, posting a 5-1 record but staying undefeated in conference play. Navy and Memphis are neck and neck each with the conference loss.
In the East, Temple and Cincinnati are tied right now at the top. They'll, of course, play each other in a little over a month on November 23rd. UCF and USF stand in the middle tier, two teams that the Owls still have remaining as well. And at the bottom is ECU, who the Owls have already defeated this season, and UConn, who will play at home on the final day of the regular season. I think it's so important to take a look at those AAC East standings where Temple's at the top. You don't have to worry about rankings and pressing any kind of committee. It's just win the games you have in front of you. The Owls, for lack of a better term, do control their own destiny here.
Right.
And now that you've seen the standings, let's check in on some of the top performers from around the conference.
Let's take a look at the AAC's most wanted. First up, Malcolm Perry, the quarterback out of Navy. 5'9", 190-pound senior is wanted for possessing multiple weapons, his feet and his arm. Yeah, he's not the biggest guy, but don't be fooled of his height. He makes up for it with his speed. He hasn't thrown a single interception through all 5 games, and he reps a pretty impressive 86.7 QBR.
On defense, Javon Hicks, he's wanted for robbery. 2 interceptions this past weekend against Houston to go with 3 tackles. This guy's a total ball hawk. He's scrappy in coverage, a total no-fly zone, and this guy will do anything for the ball if it's up in the air. And he's playing on that Cincinnati defense that's, again, as I mentioned, at the top of the AAC East. Of course, Temple will have to deal with this guy late in November.
Yeah, last but not least, the senior kicker from UCF, Dylan Barnes, is a sniper. Pinpoint accuracy from distance. That includes hitting 8 of 9 field goals, 31 of 32 extra points, and no distance is too far. He's gone 2 for 2 from 40 to 49 yards out in just this season alone. The Owls will see Barnes in action on October 26th.
So much news and notes from around the AAC, but it's not all about football, and it's not all about our most wanted. Tune in on Thursday at noon right here on TUTV for our newest edition of OwlSports Update. Sean McGeehan and Brian Steinmetz are on desk talking about some nail-biters in volleyball and soccer, not to mention the AAC held its basketball media day. We'll hear from the guys and gals about their upcoming seasons. And that'll do it for us here at Inside the Nest.
We'll see you next week, but before we go, we leave you. I had a little bit of fun myself at homecoming this week. Check it out, my homecoming tailgate trivia. It's homecoming, and what better way to celebrate than quiz some tailgaters on their Temple football knowledge? I'm Brooklyn Vaughn here in K-Lot. Let's go ahead and test the tailgate. I'm here with the Temple mothers. Mothers.
Yes.
And I have a question for them. Ladies, can one of you name for me one of Temple's 2 mascots? What is it?
The owl.
The owl.
Hoot the owl. Hoot the owl.
Hoot the owl.
Right?
Pretty close.
Right. Do we get it?
No, it's Hooter.
Hooter.
It's all right. Pretty close. Who was Temple's head coach for just 14 days last December?
Manny Diaz.
Manny Diaz. Remember him? Can you name one single-digit player for me?
Yes, 1 second. I'm going to go with Russo?
Russo, no, not yet, not yet. All right, we have a little bit of a familiar face here. You remember this guy? I'm here with Frank Newtile. Frank, I have a question for you. Can you give me one name of one of the Temple mascots?
Hooter.
Hooter. Ding, ding, ding. First one right. All right, Nina, can you give me the name of one of Temple's mascots?
The owl.
The owl? Hooter? Hooter! She got